slopes of the Simonsberg Mountain with unrivaled views over False Bay to Table Mountain, you'll find Tokara's home vineyards and olive groves, a jewel in the crown of South African wine, emphasized by 2 recent world awards. It's my great honor to welcome Tokara winemaker Stuart Botha to Via the Grapevine. Warm welcome to you, Stuart.
Thanks very much, Guy. It's a great honor and pleasure to be with you this evening. So yeah, thanks for having me.
Thank you. Firstly, congratulations on making the top 100 of the prestigious World's Best Vineyards competition for 2021. And I'm hoping that it brings you many more tourists, both local and international. With those sort of things, did you know that you were being judged? How does it work?
Not per se. I mean, we kind of got news of it just probably around the same time that you did when it was all released. But obviously very, very happy to be represented in the South African nominations. And yeah, our team effort to putting Tokara on the map, not only with wines and also our olives and just the destination, the restaurants, etc. Obviously paying dividends to us, and it's great to be selected because it means what we're doing is working for us.
And we can see from the backdrop behind you there that the view is absolutely magnificent. So you're getting a taste of what you'd enjoy if you do go and visit Tokara. My wife keeps pestering me as it's the one place I haven't taken her.
Sure. Well, you know where we are, so there's no excuse really. Just find the time.
I just need to find the time because I've been short on time. That pun being necessary because your GM Carl Lambor is definitely one of the tallest men I've ever encountered. And yeah, I've got to stand about 6 steps above him for a photo. But yeah, another Durban-born boy like myself, banana boy, making a life in the vines of the Cape. Let's go back a little bit in your winemaking journey. And where did it start for you? What inspired you to get into winemaking?
Yeah, look, it's a question that often comes up. And yeah, given that I'm from Natal originally, you're right. It's quite interesting that I wound up working in the wine industry, because that's obviously very specific to the Western Cape for the most part. Obviously 1 or 2 vineyards in the Eastern Cape and Natal these days. But I tell you, it was during the school holidays when I was 15 years old. Went out like you do when you're in the Western Cape, and we were exploring the vineyards, going to some wineries. I was with my family who were here on holiday. My grandmother, and I remember we wound up at Vergelegen Estate in Somerset West, and that was really the first time for me that it hit me. I was thinking about what career to go into at the time, and it hit me that was, well, this is an industry that one can get involved in. And I mean, you know, it appealed to everything that I really am interested in. You get to work outdoors, generally work in a beautiful environment. It's a bit of microbiology, a bit of the sciences, obviously the senses. It's a wonderful career path. But yeah, that's where the genesis was for me, just on that little trip. And from there, I aligned all of my studies and all of my interests and started exploring wines, tasting as many as possible, speaking to as many people in the industry as possible. And yeah, like they say, the rest is history.
And you're making a phenomenal contribution to the industry as a result of that 15-year-old inspired passion. A perfect time to find the passion as well, because isn't 15, 16 when they send you on, they make you choose your study for the last 2 grades, if I remember rightly.
That's exactly it, yeah.
And I actually came down to the Cape for work experience during that period, and thought wine marketing was going to be my thing. So yeah. Anyway, after achieving a formidable reputation at Eagle's Nest in Constantia, you landed what I believe is your dream job at Tokara. What have been some of the personal highlights of your time at Tokara thus far?
Guy, you're absolutely right when you say this was my dream job. I studied at Elsenburg, which is obviously just outside Stellenbosch. And I remember coming to this tasting room at Tokara when I was a student, because at that time, the tastings were free, which kind of played nicely into a student's budget. But obviously the wines were also spectacular. So it was sort of double whammy of positivity there. But yeah, I remember looking at this winery and just dreaming about working here one day. And like you say, yeah, it came to fruition in 2017. But highlights for me since I've been here, I mean, I've been here for 4 years. We've won Winery of the Year in 2020, which was to do with the Wine Mag and Prescient Winery of the Year. That was fantastic. A couple of the wines, or 5 of the wines actually, were best in class or in the top 10, and then a handful, 3 of them best in class, including the best red wine of the year for that 2020. And yeah, that was a highlight. And then obviously the award that we're going to talk about a bit later for the Sauvignon Blanc from Elgin, that was both a pleasant surprise and fantastic. I mean, it's something that I think has been the goal right from the genesis of the project in Elgin. And yeah, we'll talk a bit more about that later, but it is really, really incredible. And so great for the South African wine industry, so great for Tokara to bring the attention and the spotlight to South Africa and what we can do.
For those who aren't, and I can't imagine there's many people watching this who aren't acquainted with your wines, can you give us a little bit of insight into the heritage of the Tokara winery and why the focus on Cabernet Sauvignon and Sauvignon Blanc specifically?
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, we talk about heritage, and for me, when I think of heritage, I think of 100-year-old buildings and Cape Dutch gables. But anybody who's been to Tokara will quickly realize that's not the case. And the reality is that Tokara has been in existence for 21 years only as a wine producer. But it really started out with the Ferreira family, GT and Anna-Marie Ferreira, husband and wife, deciding to move to the Cape from Johannesburg back in 1994. And they were seeking a more rural, bucolic environment to bring up their children. GT, obviously being from the banking industry, had quite a high-profile life and a very busy life up to that point. And I think they just wanted to take a little bit easier and raise their kids in an environment that's both beautiful and sort of better suited to that. So 1994, the genesis of democracy in South Africa, they purchased a small piece of land, ostensibly to see out that dream. And quite quickly after that, they met up with their formidable neighbors in the man of Giles Webb from Thelema. And he managed to convince them that perhaps they should plant some vines and rent the vineyards to him to make some wines. And that very quickly steamrolled into them planting vines and building a winery. And here we are 21 years later. A fantastic history so far. Cabernet Sauvignon and Sauvignon Blanc, why those varieties? Cabernet Sauvignon is an absolute obvious choice, especially when you're talking about the Simonsberg.
Stellenbosch,
yeah, in Stellenbosch, there's an area of elevation, I'd say between 150 and 350, 400 meters, where there's a band that goes around the Simonsberg. And if you look at that band, Aidan, our viticulturist, calls it the Platinum Belt. That, and in terms of terroir for Cabernet Sauvignon, is absolutely second to none, probably the best in the country, if not the best. There are sections in Helderberg that also can sort of stand up to that. But the Cab Sav became the cornerstone. It's the king of grapes in this region, and it became the cornerstone of our flagship wine, which is the Director's Reserve Red, which is a Bordeaux-styled red wine. And the natural accompaniment to that is a Bordeaux-styled white, which is also Sauvignon Blanc led. And we got some wonderful south-facing slopes on our property, which we then planted to Sauvignon Blanc. And that rolled into the Elgin property being purchased a number of years later, when the desire was not only to produce a Bordeaux-styled wine, which is barrel fermented, Sauvignon Blanc and Semillon, but also a cooler climate style, straight Sauvignon Blanc fermented in stainless steel, which brings us to the Elgin. And that wine itself is there was a lot of homework done. There was a lot of consideration put into what to plant, and those two varieties came out absolutely tops. And I think the success of the wines in our very relatively short history, with those two varieties leading the way, is testament to the fact that it was the right choice.
In terms of a top three out of the winery, what other variety would you name as the next of your personal kind of faves that you produce? I know you've got a penchant for Syrah personally,
Yes.
but I mean, which other wine that you produce would you say, right, it's those are our top three at Tokara?
Currently, I've mentioned the Directors Red and White, which are two Bordeaux varieties. They are our flagship wines. We also do a straight Cabernet Sauvignon in the guise of, call it our ambition wine. It's called the Telos. And that's really the best block on the property, the best 4 barrels of that block every year that we bottle. So only 1,000 bottles produced. And that's really a wine that's all about seeking out the absolute top, best quality fruit combination in barrel with the cooperages that we've had great success with over the history of this property, and putting it to bottle as, like I say, an ambition wine. It's a wine that's supposed to stand out. And again, the objective of it is to bring the spotlight to South Africa, and not only Tokara itself, but South African wines, and be able to put wines forward that will stand up against the best in their class across the world. I mean, that's really what it's all about. And that's what the Telos is all about. So it's an exciting project for me, something I really enjoy doing, obviously seeking out the 4 best barrels. I've got an idea which block. I mean, it's a single vineyard on the property every year, but we don't just make 4 barrels, we make 20 odd, but the best 4, putting them together, that's really, really a lot of fun. And there's a bit of haggling that takes place. Obviously, there's other people in the winery that my assistant, Carl, GM, Aiden, we all have a taste and a look, and it's a fun project.
Yeah.
But I mean, across the spectrum, all the wines that I make here are really, really interesting to me. I mean, there's nothing that I despise making. I mean, we've really done research into the positioning of the vineyards. We've got wonderful Chardonnay vineyards on the property in Stellenbosch and in Elgin, which also bring excitement. We make different styles. We've got an MCC from Chardonnay. We've got a reserve collection Chardonnay as well as a premium Chardonnay. Those are fantastic wines to make, and comparable with some of the best in the world. It's what more could a winemaker want? It's really, I feel like I've landed with my bum in the butter, and I'm just happy for it. Happy to come to work every day.
And it must be really satisfying for you as well as a winemaker to see the revival, if you will, of Stellenbosch Cabernet. It seems to have really gained traction. The Cabernet Collective doing an incredible work to push that forward, and without giving away trade secrets. I mean, you've already hinted at 1 or 2 things. How are you staying ahead of your Simonsburg competitors?
Yeah, there's the thing about Cabernet Sauvignon and Stellenbosch is it's a match made in heaven. I mean, it's really, if you look at the terroir, you look at the variety itself, that marriage between terroir and the variety just works so incredibly well. It's no surprise to me that it's always been the sort of the stalwart variety for Stellenbosch. I mean, it's pretty much synonymous. And what we do at Tokara, and it's been sort of a driving thing that we keep reiterating, is just to remain consistent in terms of our vineyards, and completely uncompromising. So it's quite difficult, especially when you're dealing with things like virus load in your vineyards. If you have to be completely fastidious, and that's what we are each year, you need to remove vines every year that have shown that they become infected with virus. And we do that without fail. So at Tokara, if you come to Tokara in autumn, the vineyards are golden, white and red. There's none of that red ochre color that's coming across the vineyards. And that's testament to the fact that we take out all virus in our vineyards every year, and then replant those vines that come out. Sure. And then being completely uncompromising when it comes to all facets of the winemaking process. You do that right and you've got the right terroir. There's no reason why you can't stand a bit head and shoulders above the rest. But our neighbors are doing that as well, and they're doing a great job as well. So it's nice to have them as competitors. We spur each other along. But I think this little part of Stellenbosch, the Blanc and the Simonsberg, are really, really sort of showcasing some top South African.
I was going to ask you. You say we spur each other along. Is there sharing that happens? Do you?
Yeah,
you
absolutely.
Have conversations around what the other's doing and what could be done better, or
there's well, and at least I can speak from my personal experience. I mean, we get along with each other in the valley. So I'm speaking more to the Blanc Valley. I mean, I'm Telegraph and Telima. These are my immediate neighbors, Rustenburg. I mean, you listen to those names and already you know that you're dealing with some of the top producers in the country. And Tokara's sat right in the middle of all of them. So, I mean, we're all dealing with the same terroir. We talk to each other during harvest about, this is shaping up to be good, bad, indifferent, picking decisions. Often we interface with, where we're at. Sometimes I remember having a phone call with Rudy Schultz from Telima and saying, like, what? You'd feel like we're just waiting. And he just said to me, and I mean, obviously he's got a bit more experience in the area, and he said, yeah, I think I'm going to start picking, because if we don't start now, it's all just going to come at the same time. And, there's a constant interplay, and that obviously influenced how I handled the next few days in the vineyards. There's that constant interplay. And I mean, I have great discussions with Mornay from Telegraph. We often show each other our blends, or trial blends, before we actually finalize them, just to get each other's opinions. And that can be helpful as well.
That's brilliant.
But it's really, always great, it's kind of like a camaraderie,
It's good to hear. It really is good to hear, because as you say, you are in a particular position within Stellenbosch. You share the same terroir, and it's really awesome to hear that there's that camaraderie there. And I can only imagine what your personal wine cellar looks like with those neighbors around you. Sure, your personal collection must be absolutely sensational. You're acknowledged as somewhat of a cool climate specialist, and the proof is somewhat in the pudding, so to speak, with your reserve collection, Elgin Sauvignon Blanc, and the 2020 from your Elgin Vineyards was crowned best in the world in Brussels as the overall winner of the 12th Concours Mondial de Sauvignon 2021, best Sauvignon of the competition, and the only South African wine to bring home a trophy. It's a cool climate showstopper. Congratulations, Stuart. You must be incredibly proud.
Yeah, you said it, Guy. I'm ecstatic about that award. It's something that I mentioned earlier that I didn't expect. I mean, we enter these competitions, but in this case, we went up against over 1,200 producers from across the world, and many of them sort of icons in their own classes. You're talking about New Zealand Sauvignon Blanc, Sauvignon from really top producers that have kind of been benchmarks and that I've looked at as examples of the finest in their class for years. And to come away with the trophy for the best wine on the show, it really was a wow moment for me and my team. I mean, we put a lot of effort into it, of course, making this wine and growing the grapes. It's a great team effort, but to be awarded like that and recognized with such a prestigious award was fantastic. And I mean, it's early in my career, Tokara. It's also a nice tip of the cap in the sense that I'm heading in the right direction. I'm steering the ship correctly. So yeah, it was a wonderful achievement for myself and my team. And yeah, many more I hope to come.
Yeah, I believe though that the wine had a chance of not making it to market thanks to COVID and that first radical lockdown. Tell us a little more about that.
Radical is a word used probably very accurately. The the fact of the matter is, because it's a cool climate Sauvignon Blanc, we pick it sort of middle of to late March. So between the 15th and say 25th, 28th of March each year. So that's quite late for Sauvignon Blanc. And if you recall, that first lockdown, I think, began on the 23rd or 24th of March.
I was going to say 26th, but yeah, I think you're right. It was
somewhere around there. But I remember, and obviously it was anarchy at the time. Nobody knew how to handle that. But the big thing was transportation of staff, and the fact that, you know, people couldn't gather in groups, or were not permitted to gather in groups, or be transported in vehicles together. And it posed a real challenge to us, because the Elgin site is obviously remote to the Stellenbosch site, but the wine is all made in the Stellenbosch winery. So we needed to get our teams there to pick the grapes and transport them back. And it was a time when it wasn't yet just sort of allowed that agricultural was an essential service. So it was really all just touch and go for us. But obviously we got it done. And the wine made its way into the bottle, the grapes got here. And yeah, it was a really, really interesting time to be alive and be a winemaker. But yeah, I'm just happy that we got it all done. And imagine if we hadn't. I mean, we would have
greatness would never have been witnessed. Sure.
Yeah, I suppose you could say that, but no, it would have been a disappointment.
And I still can't believe that it only retailed at 160 Rand a bottle, a rather silly bargain for the world's best Sauvignon Blanc. Are there still bottles available for purchase? Of that particular vintage?
Short answer is no. After that award came out, the wine was snapped up in short order, as you can imagine, especially at that price point. One of the things we don't do is we don't adjust prices when we win awards. That's just disingenuous, I feel. So the wine is priced where it always would have been. But happily, the 2021, which you've got in front of you there, is available. It's out in the market, and it's singing at the moment. It's just coming into its drinking window. Really, really looking quite good. So not a bad follow-up.
Indeed. I'm tasting that today, your latest vintage, and it's incredibly impressive. You have a look at that label. It's beautiful. Stuart, introduce us to this wine, if you will. Give us a sense of what this wine is, and what makes it stand head and shoulders above the competition.
So again, I'm going to come back to place and sense of place at terroir. When it comes to the greatest wines in the world, the French have got this down pat. They've isolated and earmarked positions and plots, and even vineyard rows within plots, because the reality is that's what it's all about. It's all about where the fruit comes from. And Elgin Sauvignon Blanc is no different. If I can paint a picture for you from where it comes, or from where the grapes are grown, we've got a piece of land out there. It's 400 meters above sea level. It's on 450 million-year-old decomposed granite, which is overlaid by very, very mineral, washed-out sandstone. So it kind of looks like that sort of gray, silty top layer of soil that you get when you go into the mountains of the Western Cape. And it's sat 5.5 kilometers away from the ocean, which is a lovely cooling ocean, and it gives wonderful cooling effects. And to couple with that, our vineyards are right next to a 20-hectare lake, which also has a cooling effect. So you get the wonderful combination of that soil type, the altitude, which gives a cooling effect, the ocean with the southeaster, which is prevalent, as we know, in summer. If you're Cape Townian and you haven't realized the southeast is a function of summer, you haven't been here long enough, or you haven't taken note. But that cooling southeaster that blows in off the ocean every morning brings a mist into the vineyards almost every morning in the growing season. And what it does is it enables us to have vineyards growing in beautiful, Southern African sunlight, which generates incredible aromatics and incredible flavor profiles. But at the same time, it's all done in almost like a refrigerated environment, if I could say that. The temperature really never spikes, and temperature spikes are what really degrades aromatic profile, especially on Sauvignon Blanc. And that's why cool climate Sauvignon Blanc has become such a buzzword and such a sought after wine style. So that just paints the picture for you from where or about where the grapes come from. And then, of course, we've got really, really awesome material in the ground there. When I say material, I'm talking about the vineyards and the clones that we use. And we planted 18 hectares, which is quite a significant amount. And not every one of those grapes goes into the production of this wine. I then go and do a further selection throughout the year, take only the free run juice and the blocks that perform the best with the most exquisite and intense aromatic components to bring into this wine. So I'm really spoiled for choice. And at the end of the day, this is almost a distillation of the best that we have out on that elgin property in the bottle. And yeah, aromatically and on the palate, you get a very, very serious, very, very aromatically intense wine that has incredible ageability. I mean, a lot of people don't talk about ageability on Sauvignon Blanc, but I've opened examples of this that are 10 years old, and they are absolutely singing. So yeah, don't be shy to put some away if that's something you can do.
Definitely. And what I love about it is that you've got a wonderful, and I know that this was quite a hit with the 2020 vintage, which was the big winner, but you've got the lovely aroma of blackcurrant on here, which is so refreshing almost to pick up on a Sauvignon Blanc. Yeah. And yes, there's those hints of green apple in there, a little bit of lime as well. For me personally, though, I'm picking up that blackcurrant, and it's an aroma that I think in my mind kind of reminds me of summer holidays, of using the blackcurrant cordial, mixing it with water, going and jumping in the pool. So this really does it evokes quite a lot of emotion. It's an incredible aroma, and a wine that I could kind of just keep sniffing. It's taken me a while to take a sip.
Yeah. So yeah, a sniffing wine in that sense. But I mean, like I said, I'm glad you picked up on that blackcurrant. I refer to as blackcurrant leaf because there's kind of an interplay between that blackcurrant note as well as a leafy herb. But it's completely unique to elgin and the fruit that we get from elgin. And it's something that becomes somewhat of a cornerstone. And it's actually what I seek out when I mention those components that I have available to me. I've got all my free run tanks to put together as options when I make up this wine. And that's the one thing that I seek out as a sort of a reference point that I want to bring into the wine. So if the wine in tank is showing that characteristic, I know it's probably going to find its way into the Elgin Reserve collection because I seek out that characteristic. I think it's completely unique in this wine. And I think it's what puts it sort of, or makes it stand out. It makes it, as opposed to just being Sauvignon Blanc, which has generally that sort of fruit medley, aromatic, sort of a medley of fruits. You can't really distinguish any one. It's kind of a fruit salad. This really is distinctive. And yeah, it's combined with a number of other things. I mean, you mentioned green apple. There's definitely there, a bit of lime, a bit of sugar snap pea. If I think of it from that perspective, there's a lovely sort of stony note that comes across on the nose. That's often referred to as petrichor, which is that the aromatic of rain on sort of a dusty road, or a very, very sort of a thunderstorm on a dusty road. There's a subtle hint of that, and that comes from, again, the soil profile and that sort of very, very fine gravelly sandstone that overlays in the vineyard. It all just comes together, and that terroir, it really, like, when the first time I went there, I couldn't believe it. I mean, the estate is called Highlands, and you honestly, if you go there in the middle of winter, it feels like you could be in Scotland because it's just this big flat area, and it's often misty with low scrub around the vineyards, and generally very cold with that big lake next to it. It's something completely different and immensely unique in South African context. So yeah, looking forward to making more of these Elgin Sauvignon Blancs going forward.
I just want to ask the word that you use to describe the aroma that can be compared to fresh rain on a gravel road. What was that?
The word is petrichor.
Petrichor. And is that
Petrichor.
the description? Yeah. You've given me something to do now. Next time I'm out on a gravel road in a rainstorm, I'm going to stop and jump out to have a sniff. That's incredible.
Well, that's it. I mean, we've all smelt it. It's when, especially you get it often in the Highveld where thunderstorm just rolls along. The day is 35 degrees, 38 degrees, and then the thunderstorm rolls in and you get that beautiful sort of instant cooling effect, and there's a bit of a mist coming off the roads. That's the smell that I'm referring to.
Very, very intriguing. You position yourself as a Bordeaux red and white wine producer. With your Director's Reserve White being somewhat of a benchmark in South Africa. With this Elgin Reserve Sauvignon Blanc achieving such greatness, is there an opportunity for more dedicated wines from Elgin being added to the portfolio? We mentioned earlier that the Chardonnay grapes come from there. You've got the Cap Classique, Blanc de Blanc made from Elgin Chardonnay. But what I'm asking is, can we perhaps expect to see an Elgin-specific Chardonnay or even a Syrah, perhaps?
Yeah, so the Reserve Collection Chardonnay, just to reiterate, is from the Stellenbosch fruit. But quite rightly, you quite rightly said the MCC, our Blanc de Blanc MCC, is all from the Elgin fruit. I've got 2 hectares of Chardonnay planted there, so there is a possibility for. We often do sort of limited release, small parcel batches, experimental batches of varieties from the different properties. So we've done Cabernet Franc, we've got a Chenin Blanc currently, we've got a Pinotage. So there is scope for definitely a limited release on the Elgin Chardonnay. But I think in terms of other varieties, the Sauvignon Blanc has proven to be such a perfect marriage when it comes to the terroir, and obviously quite successful for us. So if anything, I think we'll be planting more. And I know there are rumblings and murmurs about planting some more Sauvignon Blanc out there so that we could perhaps expand the production of this wine, because it really is, when you find that sort of
quality,
that synergy and quality coming out of a vineyard, like you rightly say, it's hard to ignore, and you don't really want to try and go and reinvent the wheel. That's proven to be working for us. So if anything, I reckon we'll be planting a few more Sauvignon Blanc grapes out there.
I must say that a lot of respect to you for that, because it must be hell of a tempting to try and push the boat a little bit when you do discover a plot or a block or terroir that is so perfect. So well done to you and the team for being considered about it and saying, no, we're going to continue to just focus on what we're doing, because I think it must be incredibly tempting. This wine is retailing for 160 Rand a bottle-ish, 160 Rand-ish, I believe.
Ish.
The 2021 Elgin Sauvignon Blanc. Look for it in stores. Get your hands on this. As Stuart has said, keep a few bottles as well. Give it a tester. Before we kind of wrap up, I want to give you an opportunity to sell Tokara a little bit, because I know, besides the wine, there's some phenomenal reasons to visit. So just share with us 1 or 3 of those, if you will.
1 or 3 or 5.
Go for it. Yeah.
I mean, so Tokara, if you look at the area where you would visit at Tokara, the Ferreiras have really set it up so that they can share a beautiful space with our guests. And we have a number of amenities here. We've obviously got the tasting room, which is spectacular in itself, with views back across Cape Town towards Table Mountain, which are absolutely stunning. If you get the right day and it's not too hazy, it's really, really like something to behold. And I think that's one of those views that becomes iconic for a lot of visitors from abroad as well. Both the tasting room and restaurant share that view. The restaurant has exquisite food. And then, of course, we've got our delicatessen, which is slightly removed from the winery. And there's a beautiful olive grove walk in between the two. I mean, you could obviously drive there and park there if you chose to, but I really recommend parking at the tasting room and taking a meander through those olive groves, which are really starting to mature now. They're quite large. It's just stunning to be on this property. There's beautiful gardens. And of course, everything has been done and is encompassed by wonderful architecture. Like I said, it's not the traditional Cape Dutch gable that you'll find at Tokara. It's somewhat more contemporary. The buildings are 20 years old, but you get the feel that they're quite modern in their makeup. A lot of steel, glass, stainless steel, and natural stone and concrete being used in the construction. So it really is quite an architectural masterpiece. It's a pleasure to actually work in this building because it's so functional and beautiful. And then, of course, we've got artworks dotted around and sculptures and portraits and tapestries from the likes of Kentridge on the walls. So it's just a wonderful place to come and spend a morning or an afternoon and have a meal and drink some wines and just kick back, because it really is. It's a fun place to be. It's a good place to come and have some fun in the sun. And the produce here is all of a really, really high quality. Of course, there's olive oils as well. So
yes,
you want for nothing when you come to Tokara. And I encourage you all to come along and pay us a visit.
Stuart, some quick fire questions to end with, and literally just the first word or words that pop into your mind to answer these questions. And we'll start off with, what's your favorite variety to drink?
Cabernet Sauvignon.
Wow, that was very quick. Sure, yeah. I'm impressed.
Yeah, no, actually, yeah, okay. I go through phases, but currently it's Cab.
Yeah, oh, you know, that's the same. I feel the same way. I hate it when people say, "What's your favorite variety to drink?" I say, "Well, that's unfair. I mean, what season are we in?" So,
which child of yours do you like the most?
Exactly. Mountains or beach for holiday?
Beach, definitely.
Nice.
Urbanite, come on.
Still got those banana groves in you, hey?
Yeah. As long as the water's warm, I've got a wetsuit.
What would you say is your greatest achievement as a winemaker?
Look, this Concours Mondial Award was definitely one for the record books for me. But also, there's another one. A good few years back, very early in my career, I think it set me up a little bit, was the IWSC for the trophy for the best Syrah on the show back in 2011. That was really something as well. And also, I was quite young then. I was like 23 years old. So yeah, that was fabulous. But this recent one is obviously another fantastic feather in the cap.
This is definitely a winemaker to keep your eyes, ears, and palate associated with, dear viewer, because he's going to be racking up many more awards. And I hope that you'll still take my calls when you've won the platitudes, the multitudes of awards. Guy, who, what, Visa, where? Okay, yeah, all right. Let's see if we've got time.
You got my word. I like winning awards as much as the next guy, but I don't really. They're not my cornerstone, put it that way. I make the wines I make because I love making wine.
Yeah, I think you might have answered my next quickfire question with your answer around being 15 years old, but maybe there is something else that stands out for you. Your most memorable wine tasting experience?
Sure. Okay, definitely. I was invited by my German importer and friend many years ago. Well, not many, about 6 years ago. To a tasting of some of the Bordeaux first growth from 1928 versus 1929. So it was a comparative tasting of those two vintages.
Wow.
And yeah, obviously those wines are like hen's teeth, very difficult to come across, and certainly once in a lifetime tastings. And to look at those wines with the age that they had on them, obviously they'd been kept in very good conditions. That was a profound moment for me as a winemaker, to see what could be done with a product that's arguably living and breathing, sort of 95, 98 years down the line. It was it was remarkable.
Sure, I can only imagine the effect that must have had on you and your winemaking.
No, I could hear the angels singing.
I was just going to say, almost spiritual, hey? Sure.
Yeah, it was beautiful.
Last one for you, and this is really a tester question to see how much of of a Cape Townian you've become. I'm joking. Durban bunny chow or Cape Malay curry?
Cape Malay curry. I don't think I could face the heartburn that a bunny chow would give me these days. Definitely Cape Malay curry every single day of the week.
And the Cape Malay curries pair, of course, so beautifully with our selection of wines in the Western Cape. Very difficult to find a wine that goes with a Durban bunny chow. Hey, sure. All that bread and
maybe a, what's it, a Fanta Piney or something.
Hey, yes, Fanta Pine. I haven't had one of those in a long time. Well, if you fancy your luck, then answer the easy question here on the Via the Grapevine page, and you could win a mixed case of Tokara wines. Very nice prize indeed. Head across to the Via the Grapevine Facebook page for an opportunity to enter this competition. And Stuart Botha, thank you, sir. Thank you for your time and your energy today. I sincerely appreciate it.
It's been a great pleasure, Guy. Thanks for having me, and to all your listeners and viewers.
Thank you. Join us again next week. And don't forget to visit our sponsor, Liquor City Claremont. Visit their wine emporium for a journey via the Grapevine.